Tēnā tātou, nau mai haere mai. Welcome to the Māui Playbook, where we discuss culture, commerce and creativity. My name is Vincent Egan. I'm a doctorate student of professional practice. On this podcast, we'll pinpoint critical mindsets, systems and behaviours to optimize for growth and success. So adding content into a Fortnite or any other gaming platform that's like it, especially those that are known and have a global and massive popularity and reach, they offer some pretty decent opportunities for engagement and for visibility for things like your businesses, or it might be your personal brand, or you might be developing a product, or could even be like an educational institution. So this platform can be more than just a tool for global exposure. It can be a way to be able to make your idea or any material that you're working on into an interactive narrative or a story that people can become fully immersed within. So it's a platform to be able to mold your idea or whatever it is, and you can basically create it into a top tier or a premium tier video game that can be played or available at least to millions of return users every single month. I think like the last time that I checked, there was like 80 million return users to the Fortnite platform every month. Like it may have changed. You might want to check that out, but that was the last time I saw it. And that was, that's pretty amazing for your brand or whatever it might be. So the immersive nature of a game platform creates this unique space where players interact with your content, but they do it in, their own time and they do it on their own terms. And so this is in line with the concept, you might have heard of it, but the concept of immersive marketing or immersive design in general. And this is where these types of concepts are part of, the user's interactive experience as a so if you look at it as a form of marketing, it's like it's more effective because it's woven into the experience of whatever the user is doing rather than being this external interruption like you'll find with things like ads that pop up in front of you in YouTube. So it can be a better approach overall. So using the UEFN development platform, and that's the one that we've been using to make stuff on Fortnite, especially if you're using it in this way, it allows for storytelling and experiential engagement. And these are both powerful as tools in the modern marketer's toolkit or just people's toolkits in general, I suppose. But so by creating game levels that, let's say, narrate a brand story or they depicting educational content, companies and institutions, they can engage players in an experience that is more memorable, and ideally it keeps more interesting as well. So looking at these researchers, Melanie Green and Timothy Brock, they expand on this concept of a thing called narrative transportation. So it's a concept explored in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, and it suggests that when individuals travel into a narrative world, their attitudes and their intentions are being impacted by whatever that narrative is. So that's a really powerful tool to be able to harness, and especially in this sort of immersive environment that we're talking about. So this kind of approach aligns perfectly with things like current data trends towards, more interactive and engaging forms of communication, where the focus is on creating experiences, like a really meaningful experience for a user, rather than just presenting them with dull as information, just putting information in front of a person and expecting them to be interested in it or want to learn more about it. So, when talking about educational content, this method can positively impact the learning experience of an individual because it makes it heaps more engaging, it makes it heaps more relatable to the audiences that it's been put in front of. And there's an idea of gamification, which you may have heard of in the education space, and it's explored by some more researchers, Hamari, Koivisto, and Harry Saza. And it's in their published paper called Does Gamification Actually Work? This is me paraphrasing, but it's basically like a literature review of empirical studies. And it basically looks at how gamification is a method that is proven to increase a student's motivation and their engagement in whatever the subject matter is. So it's about like connecting users, but it needs to be done in a way that is like well reasoned. It just needs to make sense. It needs to be a really thoughtful approach to doing that particular thing. So game levels like the ones that we're developing here at Maui, like this basically presents this really amazing opportunity to be able to connect with these millions of users. And so having a focused alignment with this audience is really important, especially when we're trying to scale ideas across the entire planet. So if you look at it from, let's say, like a commercial lens, it's a chance for a brand or different products and things like we've talked about, but it's a chance to be able to put those things in front of a wider audience. And ideally, it's a new audience for them as well that might be interested. So a good example, and I'll link to it in the show notes, is the team over at Nike. And they did an amazing job with creating the Airphoria project. So check out the link if it's something that you want to explore a little bit more about. So when it comes to educational content, we work with different education providers to be able to create, we really want to be able to create this resonance with their students. And leveraging this type of platform makes it way easier because we're engaging with audiences through a medium that they already know about. It's not like a new thing to them. It aligns with their existing lifestyle and their existing interests. There's this research on media consumption habits of different generations, and this particular one, it indicates a meaningful shift towards these interactive and these digital platforms like the ones that we're using. So with traditional media channels, you think about those, they're just becoming less and less relevant. People are just less interested in those. That's not to say that they don't have their place, but we're just definitely considering these digital spaces because of the nature of the work that we do. And this shift, it underlines the importance of basically, meeting your demographic where they are in their preferred digital spaces. And it's also worth considering as well that, like, when you're meeting them in those spaces, we're also meeting their friends and people that they care about in these spaces as well. And so these platforms, they leverage these genius levels of social design elements, and they're introducing things like pop culture along with like cool ass dance moves or like awesome ass music, along with other fun things that they can do. And within this social dimension, things like content or ideas or whatever it is that you might be sharing, they can quickly become a topic of discussion to their different friendship groups. And that's basically pushing the reach of an experience beyond its initial intention, um, which is it just starts to create all these new possibilities. And then if you look at the context of education, so having educational material, having it embedded in these games as well, we're starting to challenge the typical learning experience for any person, and even how people might perceive their own learning experience as well, how they're going about learning new things and concepts. So it makes things like education, it makes the sort of climb of it, I suppose, it makes it just more relatable and more engaging for an individual. And ideally, if they are, having more retention in that particular thing, ideally they're having a greater interest in the subject matter overall. Sorry, I just fumbled that one out. So if you adopt this strategic position, let's say, you're creating a space to be able to place yourself or your brand or your organization or content that you're developing basically at the forefront of interactive media and innovation trends. And so we've seen how this has been impactful for brands aiming to resonate with people like gaming and tech audiences, but it's also useful for those who are seeking to revamp their image or to align with contemporary ideas. And it basically sends a really useful image on behalf of, let's say, your stakeholders as well. It basically tells the world that the brand or the organization that you're developing or the idea that you're presenting, it's something that's playful, it's something that's creative, and especially it's something that has a willingness to step outside of the conventional box, and especially stepping outside of that conventional marketing box, which you see a whole lot of trash marketing ideas getting spread around. So having an opportunity to be able to step out of that can just have a really meaningful impact on whatever it is that you're working on. So this sort of positioning can be essential in, let's say, today's marketplace, where things like differentiation and innovation, they can be really key drivers of perceived value of your brand or whatever it is that you're doing. This episode is brought to you by Metawhenua. Metawhenua are digital Māori cultural spaces available for interactive learning, cultural preservation and access. Metawhenua bring te ao Māori to you and those you care about. If you'd like to learn more, please register your interest at metawhenua.com, or a link is available for you in the description. Metawhenua. Embrace te ao mati ko Māori. So this aligns the brand with cutting edge digital trends. It's resonating with an audience that values technological advancement and also things like innovation as well. Now, for educational institutions, this approach can basically redefine their image within the marketplace. They're basically like redefining how they're presenting their curriculum, and it positions it to be forward thinking, it positions it to be adaptable to new learning methods, and it's basically a way to be able to break free from um, these kind of more traditional and sometimes stereotypical images of educational content being something that's really boring or might be really dull, or often it can be really unengaging. And that's why, different organizations will come to us to be able to maybe add a fresh lens to the content that they're pushing out. And so basically integrating with this game, or games like this, different platforms like this, it's more than just, let's say, a marketing tactic. Like, yes, it is an amazing tool for marketing. It's more than something that's just superficial, but it can be more of a statement declaring that whatever it is that you're producing is something that is bold, it's innovative, and it's aware of what's happening around it in the digital era. So your users can experience this, a dynamic and an interactive and a beautiful and a localized environment, and basically be operating within a place that traditional marketing approaches and media approaches, they just can't go to. They just, they exist in a completely different realms. So your experience goes beyond just being this one-way interruption from a brand to a consumer. Instead, it becomes, when it's embedded within an interactive game setting, it becomes an experience, it becomes a two-way communication, and ideally it becomes a conversation between, yourself and the end user as well. And users don't just passively receive this information, they actively engage within it. And if it's designed thoughtfully enough, they're actually actively seeking out your message, they're actively seeking out what it is that you've produced. And when users are, actively engaged in or involved in a task, they are more likely to remember it as well. And if the idea is, again, set up really meaningfully, users will develop this positive attitude towards what it is that you've developed. Now, when it comes to that student context, and instead of them just simply reading a textbook or watching something educational, students begin to interact with it in the virtual world, and this makes learning more engaging and fun. So I suppose we've already sort of covered that type of concept, but this aligns with a paper, and I'll link it in the description as well. When it's about this experiential learning, which talks about this active involvement in the learning process and how it enhances understanding and retention. So I'll link that one to you as well if you can be bothered reading all this academic content. So then comes this power of, and this completely amazing approach of shareable media. So with your content published on these platforms and your users are playing with it, but once it's on this platform, you can start playing with the idea of, your concept's potential, its viral potential. So these games have this amazing ability to be able to generate shareable and interesting content, meaning that they can go way far, like further beyond their typical reach of what, we talked about their original intention. But players often, they'll share their experiences. So they'll share things like their trick shots, they'll share highlights of whatever it is, they'll do tutorials for how to find that rare item or that rare weapon, or how to take down that really difficult boss. And so they share these unique in-game experiences, and they do that on their social medias. They'll do it through their streaming services, that of like Twitch or like YouTube. And so when players are sharing this content, they're basically endorsing it as well. So it acts as a personal recommendation to their network of the content that they've just been sharing. And that essentially adds this whole new layer of trust and authenticity to the piece. Now, this is supported by the researcher Jenkins, and I'll link this one to you guys. And it's talking about this concept of spreadable media, where content circulates rapidly through a community and peer networks, and it's basically extending its reach. Now, there are a number of different significant data points that are connected to the different game levels you can develop, and these can give some really unique insights into, let's say, like consumer behavior, what they prefer, content specific engagement, and this data provides this real time feedback on what gets audiences' attention. So things that work for them, things that might not work for them. And this aligns with the concept of consumer behavior analytics in the Journal of Marketing, which plays a crucial role in understanding and predicting, consumer preferences and their decision-making processes, basically why people do what they do. So through these analytics, we were able to see how players might solve a particular problem or how they may interact with a particular piece of content in game. And this can give us some really deep insights into the learning styles or the ways that they like to engage. And so that helps to adapt our engagement strategies overall. But they're data-driven and they're well-informed pieces of strategic moves. So there are basically a lot of ways in order to be able to build upon a lot of the ideas and things that we've talked about here today. And, we can really take advantage of these amazing online platforms through some of these ways. So I just think it might be useful for you to consider how it may be useful to supporting you, to developing things that you want to develop. And, it's in my nature. So I'll just keep digging and I'll just keep learning about the different trends and things that are involved with this sort of environment that we're operating within. And ideally, I'll just work to be able to share some of the stuff with you guys in future episodes. But until then, I think you guys, I think that's enough for us to be able to cover today. And I'll see you guys again soon. If you're learning something or getting any value out of this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's a zero-cost way to support us so we can bring more of this type of content to you. Alternatively, you can support us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Please check out our sponsors. That's the best way to support this podcast. If you have any questions, advice or comments for us, or even topics you'd like us to cover, please put those in the YouTube comment section. We will read every comment and would like to know your thoughts. If you're not already following us on social media, we're Māui Studios on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Links are available in the description. This is the podcast where we discuss culture, commerce, and creativity. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to view this episode. Kia haumaru te noho. Have an awesome day and we'll see you in the next one. Mauri ora.